Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about when you should start learning two languages at once. Now, there are arguments on both sides of the learning two languages at once coin. The one language at a time fanatics argue that you're more likely to fail at speaking two languages than becoming fluent in one. Now, this has some merit. If you don't know what language you want to learn, and you spend most of your time flopping back and forth between the two languages, trying to decide which one to study instead of actually learning them, then yeah, learning two languages at once is going to be pretty hard. Plus, what about when you accidentally start using French words when you're speaking Spanish? This is likely to happen if you're learning two languages at once. On the other hand, the 2+ language folks say that learning two languages at once can actually speed up the process. If the languages are related, then maybe you can solidify some grammar rules, and if the languages are different, then you can practice translating from one language to another. Plus, if you get sick of learning one of the languages, you can always switch to your other while your brain works out the kinks. So which is it? And when is it okay to start learning another language? There was a study done on 72 Chinese students who were studying English at university. Now, half of the students were English majors, and the other half were English and Russian majors. The study was set up to see if those learning two languages at once were at an advantage or a disadvantage compared to the one language learners. They tested the students in their English fluency at the beginning and the end of the experiment. In the beginning, all the students had about the same English fluency. Now, what's interesting is at the end of the study, when they tested both groups again, those that were studying just English and those that were studying two languages, including English, got better by about the same amount. The scientists had set out to prove that our brain has a limited amount of capacity when learning new language as a whole, but it turns out in the end, they rejected their hypothesis. So really, it seems that learning two languages at once is a decision that's left up to the learner, you. So this study confirms my hypothesis, and I know that's not technically correct, so sorry stats friends, but in my opinion, the time when you should choose if you want to learn two languages at once is when you want to. If you want to conquer one language before learning a second, that's great. But if you're someone that thinks learning two languages at once might be fun or beneficial, then I say go for it. So this year, I've decided that I want to try to learn two languages at once. Here are a few tips that I've read about and tried that I think could help you if you want to learn two languages at once as well. Number 1. Pick two very different types of languages. Now, you can do whatever you want, but this really helps me. For example, when I'm trying to learn new Japanese characters, I just simply am not mixing it up with the things that I already know in Spanish. They're so different. Number 2, have a priority language. The benefit of this is that eventually one of the languages becomes more autopilot in certain aspects of the language. So for me, I know all the greetings, I know how to form basic sentences, things like that in Spanish, whereas in Japanese, I'm learning literally the words for hello and all these types of things. So it's nice to have my brain on autopilot in Spanish for things that I'm actually learning in Japanese, and that way I'm not really mixing them up. Same with in English. I never accidentally say an English word when I'm trying to speak Japanese, just because my brain is so autopilot on English. So if the two languages are separated in stages of how proficient you are in them, I think that's really helpful. Number 3, make time for both languages daily. Now, I think it's much easier to study every day instead of like 5 days a week. When you make studying a non-decision, you automatically just do it in your everyday life. So pick a time or pick a place or both where you're going to study both languages. You don't have to study both for the same amount of time. You could study one for 10 minutes, one for an hour, whatever you want, but just make sure that every day you're studying a little bit of both languages. My next tip is just one for learning a language in general. So make sure you're tackling all 4 aspects of the language. That's listening, speaking, writing, and reading. And I want to put a special emphasis on speaking and writing. when you're actually the one that has to come up with the things to say, it really shows you where your struggles are. There's a big difference between recognizing language and knowing language. When you're reading a book, you can be like, oh yeah, I remember this word. Or when you're listening to something, you can get it from context. But when you actually have to write it out or speak it out, that's when you know if you've really mastered the language. Number 5, feel free to mix the languages, but don't try to multitask. What I mean here is, there's no issue if you're using a big stack of flashcards and some of the words are in Spanish and some of them are Japanese or whatever languages you're learning, but don't try to watch TV in Russian while you're writing flashcards in Swedish. It's just not gonna work. Our brain can't actually multitask. The only thing it can do is switch between things really quickly. And so if you think you're getting a lot out of trying to do both at the same time, you're probably not, and it's probably just tiring out your brain. Number 6, try to be aware of your personal learning style. I think it's really easy to go on autopilot in studying. Now, you wanna set up a time when you're studying and make that habitual, but you wanna make sure that you're progressing at all times. It can be easy to always just get on Duolingo and learn your French for 10 minutes every night, but are you actually challenging yourself to learn new words? Are you actually conquering the things that you're struggling at? Especially when it comes to learning through some type of app, it can be really easy to feel like you're progressing just because you're moving down these blocks in the app. And that's great, and that can form really good habits, but make sure you're testing yourself once in a while by either speaking or writing like we mentioned earlier. As well, try to see how you best learn new words. For example, is it better when you just write out a stack of flashcards and try to memorize them? If you write the same word over and over again, if you put sticky notes all over your house, most likely it'll be a combination of something like that. Just try to be aware. So my last tip is just have fun with it. Learning a new language is exciting, so go out to eat at a place where you know they speak that language. Or every time you study for an hour, put $5 in a jar for traveling to that country someday. Whatever fun new thing you try, let me know what you're doing in the comments. I'd love to see it and probably want to try some out on my own as well. So I hope you really enjoyed this video. I hope you have some takeaways to learning a new language. It's a great time to learn a new language while we're prepping to travel again post-pandemic. I think it's great to spend some time getting familiar with culture in a remote way, and learning a language is definitely one way that we can do that. I'll be updating you with my Spanish and Japanese progress throughout the year, so look for more videos to come and stay curious. See you in the next one.